Welcome to our video, and here's 5 things to do with children in London when you're on a budget. Are you ready? Stick with us. Here we go. Yep, it's that time of year again. Summer is approaching in London and you're thinking, what do you do with the children? Where can you go which is not going to cost an absolute fortune? So here are 5 tips. Now you're probably looking at this and thinking, oh great, he started on a boat and how much does that cost? Well, we're on the Thames Clipper, also known as the Uber Clipper, which is the Riverbus which runs up and down the River Thames. Because it's a bus, it runs to a timetable, so you can look at the timetable and see when you want to catch one which is convenient for you. Also, because it's a bus and part of TfL, it is well and truly subsidised, so the cost is not as expensive as you may think. Like when travelling around London, all you do is you simply tap in and tap out. Now here, we've taken the Riverbus from Canary Wharf and we're taking it all the way to Embankment, but we're just going to show you part of the journey, because going along the River Thames in this direction gives you some amazing views. We've already been under the Millennium Bridge, which gives you the Tate Modern on one side and St Paul's Cathedral on the other. We're now approaching Blackfriars Bridge, and just under that is Southwark Bridge. Right, here's some tips for you. Now, if you want to sit outside and get the views, you can do, but you've got to sit at the back of the Riverbus. There are no seats out front. But to get views like this, go inside, go right to the front of the Riverbus and sit on the front seat, and therefore you'll get wonderful views just like this. Like a bus, it's a hop on and hop off service with plenty of stops along route, so just choose where you want to go. We've got a fuller video on this, which we call Boats and Bridges, which is coming up very shortly on this channel. The next place we're going to is God's Own Junkyard. Now this is over in Walthamstow. The best place to get here is definitely by car, but I've also marked up where there are 2 stations so you can choose which one you do to get there. Now this is an amazing place to come. This is a fantastic place to come. The more you look around, the more signs you discover, and the more times you walk around, you won't believe that you missed them first time round, and there are just more signs to be seen. The great news is it's free to get in here. The only thing it will cost is if you fancy staying here and having a cup of coffee or having a bit of lunch, there is a cafe that is available here. Now, we came here and did this and it was brilliant because it meant that everyone could just go walking around at their own pace, look at all the signs, go and see more stuff, take photos and come back and go, have you seen that one? And then everyone will sort of disappear off. So a great place to come, but I would come for at least a coffee as well. Right, just a word of warning, this place is currently only open on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and it opens at 11 o'clock in the morning. I suggest you go to the website, which is www.godsownjunkyard.co.uk, and you'll get more details there. For our third place, we're back at the River Thames, but this time we're doing slightly different, and we're on land. Now here we've got at least 3 recommendations, and the other thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to Google when it is low tide at London Bridge and head for that time. The amazing thing is, when the tide goes out on the Thames, a lot of it is accessible, and we're going to show you 3 of our favourite places. Yes, you may not believe it, but here we're right underneath Tower Bridge, and how about this? This is an ancient causeway that used to run under Tower Bridge. When the tide is in, this is well and truly underwater, and you can see on the wall how high the tide goes. So I can't underestimate timing is everything. But the amazing thing is, when you come down here onto the banks of the Thames, you'll never know what you're going to find. It's almost like a scavenger hunt. You will need to make sure that you've got some firm footing on you, because with the rocks and that, it's easy to sprain your ankle. But with a good pair of trainers, come down here and have a sift through and see what's on the shore. It's not been unknown to find pieces of ancient pipe or tiles or various other bits and pieces. But watching the tide times are absolutely critical. So before we were under Tower Bridge, here we're under Millennium Bridge, which is just the other side from the Tate Gallery and under the view of St Paul's. And as you can see from looking around, you can see a number of people here on the shore as well, doing exactly the same thing that I'm talking about. Not the whole shore is accessible, but where I'm showing you now, there are steps that lead to there which are always open. What I always find amazing as well is when you come down to the shore, when you look around, you get such a totally different view of London as well. This is our third place on the shore and is over at Gabriel's Wharf by the Oxo Tower. Here you're in the heart of the South Bank between London Bridge and Westminster Bridge. But the thing we really like is, yes, see that? It's sand, natural sand. There aren't many places you can go in London and there's natural sand to go and play with. We also found that during the heart of the summer, sometimes you get some sand sculptures down here as well. What I also find incredible is the history that sort of just all of a sudden appears when the tide goes out. Again, like this causeway in front of the Oxo Tower, which will have been used hundreds of years ago to put boats into the River Thames. At the time, most of the banks of the River Thames would have been wharves, so it would have all been here to get goods boats in and out. And when it's accessible, you can do like I do and carefully walk down the causeway. As you can also see, the locals do like to bring their dogs out to exercise on this as well. Here we're by Blackfriars Bridge, which is just over the other side of the river from St Paul's Cathedral. Once again, it's absolutely critical to keep close to those tide times. For our next place to go in London, we go to Old Street, a little bit more inland, and we're going to take in some of the street art in the East End. So you can see Old Street here, and I've pointed where we normally start our journey, but everything to the left is where you'll find street art, everything towards Shoreditch. It's incredible to believe that this street art has been put here, but also it does change quite often. So some of the pictures you may see here, you might not see when you get up there because of the way that the things change. Also, the incredible thing is, the whole buildings have been used as canvases, and then you turn a corner and you find even more art. The area that we're in for this is Shoreditch. Now, another great way to get around are using the Santander bikes, which you can see in front of us, and there are loads and loads of bike stations around, so if you really want to take in lots and lots of street art, it's another good way to get around. This is just a selection of some of the street art that we saw, and there's no way that we saw most of it. If you're thinking of coming up here at the weekend, Brick Lane is just around the corner from where we are, and that has a big market on a Saturday, so you might want to combine both. There is no doubt some of the artwork is incredible, and can I just say that that is a painting, and it's not a boy putting up a poster. Our last and fifth place to visit is the Waterworks Nature Reserve. Now this is approximately 2 miles out from Stratford, so still in central London. Easy way to get there is a free car park, but also you can see you've got Lea Bridge Station, which is on the overground railway. Again, another fantastic place to come and visit for free. There's loads of open spaces you can see here. There's also a nature reserve which is behind gates for little children, and also with woodland walks as well. Built as part of a conservation project, this veranda takes you right out into the middle of the woodland. Now to my favourite bit of the park, and here we're right in the centre, and this is where the nature reserve really happens, because as we walk down here, down this corridor, you've got parts at the side where you can look out into the nature reserves and the different lakes and all of the wildlife on the water. As you can see, there's plenty of space and also plenty of seats, so you can sit here for quite a while and watch the world go by. Another great tip is, because there's so much open space, why not bring a picnic and spend the day here? You can play your football for the nice big open space, and you can come backwards and forwards to this part to come and see the wildlife. The amazing thing about coming here is you'll never know quite what you're going to see. And the amazing thing that we found when we looked through this time is, can you see that heron down there? What I can never get over is that we're in the nature reserve, no more than 2 miles from Stratford, in the centre of London, and we're watching this wildlife. It's an incredible place to come. I hope that's given you some ideas of what you can do and our 5 favourite things to do with children at and using a limited budget. London is an amazing place, but it's true, it can be really expensive. So at least that's given you some ideas. I've also put a playlist in the top right-hand corner of some other things to do for free with children in London. So if you click on the videos there, I'll see you in those shortly.